This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Listeners of this podcast can save 20% off the first year of an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.com/DSP. To save and subscribe, go check out and don't miss out on the great features at a great Detroit sports website at theathletic.com/DSP.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! Let's go! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode, the post-Detroit Lions draft episode of the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Losing my mind. Can't remember what this thing is called, but I'm here, and I'm not really sure how I got here. But anyways, I am your host, Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. With me, as always, is that guy over there in the blue polo shirt with the glasses and the headphones. And I think he's a doctor, but he may not be. He calls himself a doc. Doc, John Macaroon, what up?
So I think we can establish that playing Kanye before recording a podcast, maybe not the best for you, because I think we're both kind of in a haze going, what did we just listen to there? You played for me Kanye lyrics about poop and scoop, and you were bumping it like you knew what we were talking about here. And I was like, what is that? I don't get it. Jason, there are people that follow us that just follow Kanye West religiously, and they're super fans, and I don't get it. I'm just not really a fan.
He's a crazy person. I think he may be a mad genius, though. I mean, the music isn't done, and that was he released 2 tracks from his upcoming album. One was Ye versus the People, where it was him and T.I. going back and forth, and that wasn't a bad track. But then he released another one called Lift Yourself, and what I was trying to explain to you is that the track wasn't finished. The track had it got to his verse. It was basically just a placeholder, and it was a lot of like boop diddy scoop doop, and it gave you the general beat and the idea of where the lyrics are going to go. And at least that's what I'm hoping, because if that's the actual song, the dude's crazy. I mean, I'm not going to deny. I mean, he is like he's got some sort of, I don't know. He's like a savant that way. You know, he came back off of Twitter, off of however long, and he's just been going nuts talking about how he loves Donald Trump. I don't know.
It's one of those things where you see a guy that reached mega superstardom. I mean, now he's married to one of the baddest women on the planet, and so you mix that together, and it's just a bunch of basically enablers just telling him, this is great, everything is awesome, and he does, like, people view him as this master kind of fashionista as well. And when you put yourself in that mindset of everything I do is great, you put out stuff like that. I don't get it. There are obviously some hits that he has that are really awesome and speak to a lot of people, a voice of a generation. But there are some things he puts out that I don't think are that good, or even not even like commercially successful. I don't even think are artistically that great.
I think you can look at it 2 ways. You can look at it the way that you look at it, where, I mean, everybody does say that, he's this genius, but I think if you look at it another way, it's that he doesn't really care what he puts out. It's what he wants to put out. And I think when you look at it through that lens, it's the fact that he can put out, I mean, whatever, rhyming about boop diddy scoop poop, and he still has like how let me take a look real quick. How many listens that actually has on Spotify at this point? It's not giving me, but I'm sure it has well over 100,000, if not more, for that.
This podcast, we got to break down a couple things. We're going to break down the biggest news in the world of entertainment, and we're going to break down the biggest news in the world of Detroit sports. We got to talk about the Avengers. You saw it. You sat there for 3 hours and were part of the experience. I seen on Twitter everybody talking about it, breaking it down, and I knew that you would come in with the King's review of the Avengers. Second half of the podcast, we definitely will talk about that. Your experience with it, what you thought about it, why is everybody tripping on Twitter, what happened, some spoiler alerts, maybe not too many, but we will definitely get your review of the movie The Avengers. The first half of the podcast, we have to talk about what everybody's been talking about the last 4 days. The NFL draft took place. Right now, the Detroit Lions had 6 picks. They ended up with 6 picks, but they got there in a path that has concerned some. Probably the most concerning aspect is next year you gave up a 3rd-round pick, but Bob Quinn has come out and said, look, we got a couple additional picks, and we were able to kind of maybe make some moves with New England and sacrifice 1 3rd-round pick in order to get somebody that they really wanted. But starting off with the first pick that the Detroit Lions had, you know what? It was one of those things where we were all excited. We all thought that, okay, we knew that Bob Quinn probably was going to be a little bit conservative, but when the pick was announced, I think because of the fact that a lot of fans didn't know who
Frank Ragnow.
Yeah, exactly. Who Frank Ragnow was, center, Arkansas. Many people, once the name was announced, after waiting 2.5 hours, I think by the time the pick came, it was 10:30, 11, people were just like, what? Who is that? Why would the Detroit Lions go with a center focusing on the offense? But then you saw after, round 2, pick 11, they trade up to get Kerryon Johnson, Auburn running back. You then kind of formulated an idea regarding what Bob Quinn was trying to do. But first and foremost, what was your reaction to the first pick number 20, a center, Frank Ragnow? Were you impressed? Were you thinking, you know what, maybe I'm underwhelmed? Were you disappointed by the selection?
I can't say that I was. I mean, I guess a little, if anything, I'd say a little disappointed and a little underwhelmed because, I made that prediction all those months ago is that whoever the Lions drafted number 1, we're not going to be happy with. And I think initially, you look at this pick and it's just like, what? Of all the positions on offense, I don't ever really think about center. You always, if you think about alignment, you're always thinking about a tackle. You're not thinking about the center. So the pick comes down, and you see Harold Landry's there. All the guys that we really would actually like to have, they're all right there. You go for some center out of Arkansas. It was definitely confusing. I understand the pick that Bob Quinn in his first 3 years now, he's completely overhauled this offensive line. And if this pans out, if Frank Ragnow can be just as good as Taylor Decker as at left tackle at center, then our offensive line should, hold up for the next 5 years, I would say, depending on how long we got TJ Lang and Rick Wagner for. So upon further thinking of this pick, I like it, but it's going to be a lot of wait and see. I've heard people talk about that if you're looking for a player to really come in and have an impact, have the most amount of impact, you definitely draft a position that they're going to be out there for every single play. If we would have gone with Harold Landry or some other defensive lineman, they would have been a rotational player, and they would have had to compete with everybody there to really get more reps. And even if they did win out a starting job, they'd be coming out. They wouldn't be out there every single down. In drafting Frank Ragnow as an offensive lineman and hopefully the last piece of your offensive line, I think it's a super ultra safe move for the Lions.
Once the pick came in, very polarizing on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, you had a section of people that were really supportive and were like, you know what, let's trust Bob Quinn. Let's trust his process. He evaluated Frank Ragnow. He saw that throughout the entire career that Frank Ragnow had in college, did not give up a sack. He saw that he played at Arkansas and that he played against some top-level competition. So people that supported the move were like, look, we got to trust Bob Quinn. Nobody's seen Frank Ragnow in the NFL, and there's an opportunity for him to do some things. Now, those that were against it, there were 2 arguments for the people that did not like the pick. One argument was, you know what? In this draft, you had an opportunity to get value by trading back. And so you know what, after the first 19 picks went down and it came down to the Detroit Lions, that it was probably in the Lions' best interest to trade back and get more picks. You know what, to end up with 6 disappointed some. The other argument was, you know what, you didn't take maybe even the best center. I know Pro Football Focus is in love with Ragnow, but there were others at that position that might have been more heralded that could have potentially done the job as well.
I know one of the things that I was looking at was, I think it was the center out of Iowa. I think his name's James Daniels, that I saw him rated as a better center over Frank Ragnow.
And so for those that disagreed, they said, look, you could have got a center, but maybe did you get the right one? So for you, if the Lions did not take Frank Ragnow, what should they have done?
I was obviously looking at Harold Landry. I think that would have been a no-brainer. You know, even if he would have been a rotational player, and this is based off him being completely healthy, that he could have been another piece on the defensive side, because it still is one of our biggest needs, is being able to get to the quarterback. And as many of those players as you can have, I think that's just better for your defense and your team as a whole. I think the Seattle Seahawks have made a living as doing that, and you saw in this draft that they really did go out and they got a bunch of those guys that can just get to the quarterback. So maybe it's a philosophy with Matt Patricia, because I know, you know, his defenses have been good, but they've also, you've seen in recent seasons, that they may not be as focused as, you know, getting at quarterback, but they're more of a bend, don't break defense. And maybe that's what the Lions are going for, is that they're looking to get the right guys, the guys who will fit the system, and the guys who will give your team the best chance to win.
Evaluating the draft in totality, I'm definitely happy with 50% of the draft. They picked 6 players. I'm happy. I'm thrilled with running back Kerryon Johnson. Unbelievable talent. Yes.
You're okay with Kerryon Johnson?
I am.
Over Darius Geis?
I am, because of the fact that he played against top-level competition in college and performed on the biggest stage. Auburn, you know, plays in the SEC, and they play the likes of Georgia and Alabama, known for great defenses, and he performed. He did well. SEC Player of the Year, I believe. And I think that on offense, he can probably be a guy that you can count on if you revamp an offensive line. So I'm definitely happy with that pick. I'm happy with the defensive lineman Deshaun Hand from Alabama, and I think Tyrell Crosby is probably in the 5th round, pick 16, viewed as a steal and somebody that when you got that player at that position, you got great value. So for me, I'm happy with 50% of the picks. Now the other 50%, there's a chance they can come in right away and do some things, and there's an opportunity maybe if you have a fullback and, you know, 7th round picks, you don't put a lot of stock in, but if you're going to implement a fullback in your offense, why not? But for me, I look at it and I say, in totality, you address needs on offense. You can't address every single need at all positions in the draft. You still have free agency. I'm okay with the draft. My overall grade would be just a solid B in terms of everybody that they got. The concern that everybody has, and one that you're concerned with, is, you know, the trades in terms of moving up to get Kerryon Johnson. You moved up several spots to go out and get him. People will say, well, okay, you did make a trade to move up to get him. Maybe you didn't pick even the best running back at that position. You could have gotten Geis. You could have gotten somebody else. People are also messaging us saying, look, you could have got arguably the 3rd best player in the entire draft in the 2nd round. You could have got Mo Hurst. You could have went in that direction. So people that are, I don't hate on people that are disagreeing with the draft. I welcome both sides of the argument. But the good thing is people are messaging us at Detroit Podcast at least alternative options that they felt were better. And so that's all. People are not saying that Kerryon Johnson maybe is not going to be productive, but when you're skeptical of the Lions, who, remember, have only won 1 playoff game in well over 5 decades, when you're skeptical, you go, you know what? Other players could be better. And that's all. It's not hating on Bob Quinn. It's not hating on the organization. It's just saying, look, based on history, when you look at what the Lions have been drafting, there's a chance to look at, if you redrafted what the Lions did, you maybe could have got, you know, 3 different players that could contribute faster and might be better overall for the Lions.
So when I mentioned Kerryon Johnson, I want to believe that he's going to be a very good running back for this team. I know myself, I like Darius Geis. He also plays in the SEC, so I know that there may have been some drawbacks on him, and that's what, you know, I think it's have you seen anything come out on Geis yet?
They just said that, you know, the argument was that he had a disagreement, verbally at the combine, I think, with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that they said that he was in a meeting and maybe they called him out on something and there was an opportunity for him to come clean or say something, and he got into an altercation with a staff. But he had an opportunity to make amends. He went back at his pro day and had the same conversation. It went well, but the word spread that maybe this guy is a problem, and also word spread, too, that once the NFL investigated what he had said regarding, teams asking him inappropriate questions, that there was really no evidence that that really happened. And so some executives looked at it and said, look, this guy's a talker, a chirper, and if this is a guy that might be willing to say things that maybe are untrue, we don't want him on the team. So basically his character came into question, and the word spread across the league. You do know, Jason, that I think the league and its owners talk a lot more than we probably all think.
Definitely. I mean,
and general manager, and word spread, because if one altercation resulted in him dropping that much, that word spread like wildfire once those meetings took place. This is a problem.
I mean, that's why Connor Cook dropped as far as he did in his draft. So I know when I saw Kerryon Johnson, I want to believe that he's going to be good, but the thing that really scared me the most in the description of him is that they called him a change of pace back. Now, change of pace, I think Amir Abdullah, I think Theo Riddick, because I see those guys as change of pace backs. So I want to know, I need him to prove to me, how is he different? I definitely see the difference between Theo Riddick. Theo Riddick is a glorified wide receiver who's listed as a running back. Now, it's really going to be, show me that you're not Amir Abdullah. I know he may not have the fumbling issues that Abdullah had in college that have definitely carried over into the NFL. So how is that going to translate here? They say that he's a hard-nosed runner, but I feel like we've been dealt this, hand before. We've seen this before.
So you're upset because they didn't get Geist. You felt like they passed on a better player.
Geist would have been the better player. I would have also loved Nick Chubb too, but he went really early in the second round. So when they didn't trade up to get him in that second round, I almost kind of wanted them to just, go defense. You really, you got your player to help your offense. Maybe we'll take another year, or go further back, because I think there were other running backs available in this draft that I think would have been more interesting over, Kerryon Johnson. Just to name a few, Royce Freeman out of Oregon would have been an interesting player, and Justin Jackson, who went in the 7th round out of Northwestern. Even the kid out of Notre Dame, he went undrafted, and those I would have rather them wait then and take the running back, because if you weren't going to get the big guys, the Barkley, the Nick Chubb, or the Darius Geis, I wasn't really sold on Kerryon Johnson or Ronald Jones out of USC. And I see those players in the 2nd and 3rd round that I would rather them have taken than trade up and spend it on a running back who I'm just not sure what they're going to get out of them.
Man, okay, so you have question marks. That's okay. Overall, though, when you look at Bob Quinn's draft, 6 players taken across 7 rounds, what do you make of it? Are you impressed? Are you saying, okay, I can see the makings of an improved offense. Matt Patricia can improve this defense with hard work, and you can acquire those that get cut in training camp. So there still is time to improve that defense. I think the people that are upset walk away going, whoa, you had needs across the defensive line. You barely scratched the surface of trying to improve it.
The biggest thing is that I want these players to come in, and if they can produce right away, if they can contribute in any way, shape, or form, and not be a liability on this team, whether it's offense or defense, that's the biggest thing for me. That's all I want. Out of your 1st and 2nd round, I expect those guys to be either starters or rotational players who you see at least half the game.
Best player the Lions drafted this year?
I mean, it's got to be Frank Ragnow. If he really truly is going to be the next center of the future for this team, I think that it says a lot of stuff, because, looking back on previous seasons, it made a huge deal. Even though Dom Raiola may not have been the best center, it made a huge deal when he got suspended those games, and Matt Stafford, in a playoff race, he had to deal with a new center. So if Frank Ragnow is going to be the leader of that offensive line, then it could be absolutely huge for this team.
Which pick do you feel like is the most egregious, the biggest stretch? I think you and I can agree that when the name Tracy Walker came across the board, we were like, who the hell is that? And the funny part was Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia celebrated like they won the Super Bowl when the pick was announced. They were really trying to sell the narrative of like, look, we got the guy we wanted. He was going to be taken right after. And that's the narrative they tried to sell on Frank Ragnow and others, saying like, look, others wanted him and they were going to be picked pretty much next. And we made the moves that we felt were in the best interest of the Detroit Lions, getting them before others. And so that's what they tried to spin. I think it's a good way to say it and say, look, others were going to take him right away. Frank Ragnow, in meetings with Bob Quinn, basically said he felt he was going to go next if he wasn't taken. So Bob Quinn has been on the interview circuit, has been talking, and when he discussed his draft philosophy, basically came out and said, look, I'm true to my board. These were the players he wanted. So if it doesn't work out, he's putting himself right there in the crosshairs saying that I wanted these players. They were on our board, and I'm true to the board. I did look to fill needs, but when there was a run on defensive linemen taken early in the first round, and if you look, there was a run taken heavily early on after all the quarterbacks, and he came out and he said, look, you can't fill every hole in a draft, but when he evaluated the offense and the lack of consistency, getting a half a yard running, he said, screw it, we're going to get the center and the running back, and Matthew Stafford has to be thrilled.
Yeah, I agree. Tracy Walker has to be the biggest question mark of the draft. In the third round, you're still looking at drafting a player that's gonna contribute early on in this draft. You know, there's tons of third round picks who come out rookie season and can actually do something. And just looking at the players taken after him at Tracy Walker, that Orlando Brown, the tackle, out of Oklahoma, I think he would have been a good depth guy. Arden Key is a guy that I really liked. He would have helped on the defensive side of the ball. You know, Harrison Phillips, the defensive tackle out of Stanford, also another guy who I think Lions were looking at him probably in the second round, or at least Lions fans. And just, again, going into the fourth round, you see all these players that would have, been interesting. A Jalen Holmes out of Ohio State. And it just, I don't know. The third round pick is definitely disappointing.
Man, why do you think they made that move? Why do you think they went and tried to get this guy? Because people, when you look at him, they say, okay, he's got some talent. Maybe he'll get in that room in the secondary and he'll learn from guys that are going to be probably, they're long in the tooth trying to move on and things like that. Do you feel like Tracy Walker is going to be the next guy like a Quandre Diggs or a defender that can do some things in that room?
I mean, I got to hope so. What I will say for defensive backs is I'm not too upset about them not taking him first and second round, because I feel of any position really in the NFL, I think defensive backs have some of the hardest time adjusting from going to college and going into the NFL, because I think you're taking on just an entire different level of quarterbacks and offenses as a whole. And we've seen it on our own team. Guys like Darius Slay, they take a couple years to really get there. So if you're going to tell me that Tracy Porter in the next 3 years will be our starting strong or free safety, and he's going to be, a top 15 to top 10 player at that position, I'll be okay with it. But if this is a guy that you're just hoping develops, that's where I can't accept that, because I need the picks that the Lions take in these first couple of rounds to pan out.
Okay, when you look at it, round one, round two, picks were dedicated to the offense. So there's going to be a concerted effort to run the football. Are you okay with basically Matthew Stafford turning around and handing the ball a little bit more to Kerryon Johnson and being a little bit more conservative with the football, keeping defenses at bay by, having a two-pronged attack, not throwing the ball maybe as much, and having an emphasis on that offense as opposed to maybe solidifying a position of need at the defensive line level? So, in essence, you're realizing that people will say, one way to improve your defense is to keep your offense on the football field. And so if you control time of possession, you have a good running game, Matthew Stafford and that offense is on the field, it helps your defense significantly. Are you okay with that mindset? For me, I am okay with it, but for me, I'm more of a guy that goes, look, it's going to take an overwhelming feat for the Detroit Lions to get to the Super Bowl and win it all. And so what's the easiest approach, I think, is not to build a supreme offense. I think the easiest approach is to build a great defense. Because look what happens. Look what I've been watching All or Nothing on. Listen.
Change the question.
No, listen. I've been watching All or Nothing on Amazon, and so you got Ezekiel Elliott, and it's a prime example of a team that went out and got the superstar, and boom, it developed an identity. They got a guy that made Dak Prescott look all world, right? But Ezekiel Elliott has the problem, 6-game suspension last year. Then the team went to crap because the defense didn't have as much talent, and they suffered some injuries on the defensive side, and the Cowboys finished 9-7 in 2017. They didn't make the playoffs. So what I'm saying is, you now have an emphasis on offense. You're going to run the ball a lot more at the expense of maybe some talent and depth on defense. And so you're thinking that Matthew Stafford and that offense is going to carry the team and be the leaders. Me, personally, I'm more of a guy that says you can win a championship with a team built by somebody in the Lions organization through a overwhelmingly awesome defense.
See, I don't know what you asked the question because you changed it completely. You worded it so you sounded right. Because you ask, are you okay with Matthew Stafford handing the ball off?
Yeah.
Where you would assume that the next part of that question would be as opposed to him throwing the ball a bunch.
Yeah.
But you just changed it to, well, I think they should have they should have built by the defense.
That's my preference.
So what's the question?
The question is, are you okay with the first 2 picks solidifying the offense in the running game, as opposed to solidifying the defensive line and getting another linebacker of impact?
And I would answer that saying that if this actually does solidify the running game, then yes, this absolutely helps the team. I'm fine with that.
Better than a better defense. Getting them closer to a Super Bowl doing it this way. You think, as a preference for you, this is the better way of doing it.
The team, as it stands right now, I think they needed the help on the defense. But I think if you solidify that offense, I think you shore up a lot of problems on the defense.
Yeah.
Because
now it's on Matthew Stafford.
If you hold the ball and you conceivably give the other team less time, less chances to score points, and your team is consistently putting up points, then I think you eliminate you make other teams more one-dimensional. You make teams have to pass, and I think our defensive backs are probably one of our stronger parts of our team at this point.
If you're somebody opposed to Matthew Stafford, this is what you're looking for, because they've given him a wide receiver, they've given him a running back, they've now solidified the offensive line. It's on him. It's on that offense. It's on him.
Say that they've given him a running back. Giving him a running back.
They've traded up to get Kerryon Johnson. That's the guy.
That's not the guy, though. Kerryon Johnson is another stopgap or a running back
you're gonna give Matthew Stafford another excuse in saying that Kerryon Johnson is not a guy that can compete. You
can't compare Kerryon Johnson to a guy like Ezekiel Elliott or a guy like Le'Veon Bell or even the rookies of last year like Kareem Hunt or Dalvin Cook. You haven't given him the star running back. Giving him the star running back would have been trading up and getting a Saquon Barkley or even Nick Chubb at that point. But you've just given him another running back by committee person to put in there.
Oh,
you're going to see
No.
You're going to see LeGarrette Blount. You're going to see Kerryon Johnson. You're going to see Amir Abdullah. You're going to see Theo Riddick. And you're going to see varying portions of these guys in each and every game.
I see this now puts the onus on Matthew Stafford and that offense. You now have pieces in place. If that offensive line stays healthy, this offense should do some things. And people are expecting that the Lions are going to make the postseason and do some things this year. So if you're not a fan of Matthew Stafford, if he does not compete this year and in the coming years, you basically got a 3 to 4 year window. You will now know it was not Bob Quinn. It was not the talent around Stafford. It was all number 9. And those that do not support Matthew Stafford are now going to say, look, here's another piece for him. You now sacrifice 2 picks in a draft to satisfy the guy you're paying $27 million to. You could have went defense and maybe even gotten further along. So that's what the haters are going to say.
Well, I'll conversely say that if it does work out, all those haters need to apologize to Matthew Stafford.
We shall see.
Like yourself.
It's about that time. It's about that time.
Jerk, John.
It's about that time we see.
Hater.
We see what the Detroit Lions bring to the table. I'm a defensive guy. Look, I saw what Denver did with an old Peyton Manning, and he barely threw for 200 yards, and they won the Super Bowl on the backs of an amazing defense led by Von Miller. I saw that and was impressed. I see now others that can win with offense, the Eagles and things like that. So it is a philosophy. that's just mine. There are multiple ways to win championships, and if you have a solid running game and you have a great quarterback that you think is a franchise guy, then you're on your way, and that's what the Lions think, and so we shall see. Because Bob Quinn's going to be, really judged on these next 2 drafts. So you better hit on at least, 50, 60% of these guys contributing. And you do see, though, that, members of his first couple drafts, a large portion of them are still on the team. So that's a decent sign, to say the least, for those that say, well, let's go back and evaluate. His second draft, well, you could probably look at and say, not the best, but his first draft,
You still got to give it at least another season.
you got to give him some time, and it was good talking draft with you. I think we're both in the camp of, well, it was okay, could have been better. There is definitely, and for those that say, oh, you can't criticize until they get on the field, look, we're talking about it now. We're not going to sit here and go, oh, you know what, Frank Ragnow, let's wait and see. Oh, Kerryon Johnson, let's wait and see. No, we're tasked with giving our opinions right now, today, when we are recording this podcast. So for those that say wait and see, keep waiting and seeing, 5 years before we talk about a player. That's not what we do here. We don't do the wait and see. We give opinions, we give our thoughts, and we're okay with being wrong. That's how we grew this thing, is we're asked a question, what do you think of the draft? And we give our opinions, whether you like it or not. So if you want to sit on the bench and wait and see for 5 years, you go ahead and do that. Those of us that want to debate, we'll do that here among the 50,000 people that message us every single day at Detroit Podcast. All right, Jason, let's take our first break. I can't wait to get your review of the Avengers. I knew this weekend when we were talking about planning the show, I said, okay, I know Jason saw the Avengers. It's going to be a good show. Talking draft, talking Avengers. I know you probably took the misses and you watched it for 3 hours. I can't wait to get your review. I'm wondering how many crowns you're going to give it. I have a good sense, but a lot of buzz on the internet. A lot of people that went to see it Thursday night have seen it now multiple times. They have said and they have reviewed it magnificently. But the most important review for me is Jason's review, and that's coming up right after this break on the Motor City Sports Rant. Jason, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic. Why do we use them? We can generate great links, quality links, so that when we have great interviews, we can pass it along so that our guests can share with their friends. We grew this network from the basement of my house. 5 years ago, we've recorded 800 to 900 weekly podcasts, and we're only continuing to grow, adding new content, having great guests visit us, adding new shows, and we could not have reached the level of success and gained sponsors and monthly supporters if we didn't have links that were quality and that people could find easily. So if you're looking to start a brand new podcast, Jason, Adam, Vito, Steve, Jerry, anybody associated with the network, we're going to recommend one host site and one host site alone for your podcast, Podomatic.com.
God's plan. God's plan.
Jason, this is the first song that you've chosen in the 151 episodes of Bumpin' Music in our breaks that I might even go purchase right after this recording.
Oh.
I liked it. It's a good beat.
I'm not sure if I'll purchase it. I mean, I just get Spotify. Come on, John.
Oh, you can get it for free?
Yeah, stream it free.
Jason, see, here's the thing. I know you can go to YouTube now and bump it anytime you want, but then I could add it to our mix, add it to workouts, things like that. Also, too, you got to look at it. We are guys that rely on support from others. So if we just take everything for free and you get everybody that is just like, well, I can listen to the podcast for free. If they don't go to the website and go to Amazon, if they don't give us, monthly contributions, they don't buy tickets from our website, they don't go to our sponsors, then there's no business model. So you have to also pay it forward. So if there's good content, going to iTunes and dropping $1 is way better than the old model where you had to buy a CD for $15 and get all the other songs that you didn't like. So for me, I have purchased, what I've done is basically once a month, I'll spend $1, and pick a song that I like from the past or that, I hear that I really like nowadays, and I'll buy it. So $12 a year spent on music, not bad within a budget.
So what's saying that they aren't getting paid for their streaming content, or how many spins they get on Spotify?
All I hear is that the business model has changed. Artists aren't getting as paid as much because of, when it started with Napster and people are getting the content for free. How do you monetize other than touring your stuff? Yeah, you can get paid via streams and things like that, but you got to show love for those that do good work. And for me, God's Plan, Drake, good stuff. I liked it. This is a clean version. I'll have to check out the naughty version to see what kind of content is in there, but I don't know what kind of stuff you add when you do a song called God's Plan. You start swearing in it, so I can't wait to hear it. It was good stuff. Good choice, though. Support your artists, support the podcast. Right?
Yeah, whatever. I'll stream all I want on Spotify because it is a good deal.
Listen, I'm not going to hate on you. You know my motto. If it's free, give me 33. So it's all good, brother.
But yeah, let's dive in. We have Avengers.
Avengers, this is the King's Review. You went and seen it. Tell me all about it. Where'd you go? Who'd you take? 3-hour extravaganza. What made the Avengers the phenomenon that has been since it was talked about, released? I mean, you talked about it several weeks ago, saying this is one of the movies you were looking forward to this spring. It dropped, broke a ton of records. People are talking about it nonstop, super rated. It's everything that everybody's wanted it to be. Not a lot of people are walking away going that they're disappointed. Tell me what you thought about the Avengers.
Friday, we almost went and saw it, and we were going to try and get my mom to babysit, but she ended up being sick, so we couldn't do Friday, and it was almost looking like I wasn't actually going to see it this weekend, so I'm glad I did see it, because I would have ruined, the podcast. But anyways, Saturday night comes, and it was really an early night. We had a birthday dinner for my mother-in-law, and we got home, we get the kid to bed. And normally what happens is we put the kid to bed and then we eat dinner. But we put the kid to bed at like 7:15, and then we got nothing else for the rest of the night. So we didn't have any babysitters. I'm just like, it's not going to happen. Not going to get to see it. But then probably close to around 9 o'clock, my wife is just like, do you want to go see Avengers by yourself? And I'm like,
hell yeah.
I played it cool. I was like, I don't want to leave you home. I don't want to leave you home by yourself. It's Saturday night. And she was like, well, it's okay. I'll see it another time. So looked it up, 9 o'clock. And the first place I wanted to go, saw all the showings, and they were all sold out. And they didn't have a showing until 11:30. And I'm not going to go at 11:30 because I'm not getting home at that point.
3 a.m.
Until 2:30, 3 a.m. So I finally found one. It was a 10 o'clock showing. And even as it was, I got there at 10. The whole top half of the theater was full, so I got a seat right in the front. In the they had that first section that's still on the ground. AMC 30.
Gotcha.
Out in Sterling Heights, and it was still a really good seat. I wasn't blasted right in front of there of the screen, but it was a good seat. It was like another 25 minutes of preview, so I could have been even more late and still seen the entire movie. But right from the get-go, the movie starts out and you're introduced to the villain, and it's from that point on, it's essentially nonstop. There really aren't parts of the movie that drag. It's all part of the story, and it's all leading towards the end of this movie.
So you went and you were comfortable going by yourself?
Yeah, I go to movies a lot of the times by myself. It's really changed since being a dad, and we don't have as much time. And my wife, she's not a huge fan of crowds, and we knew that this was going to be a ton of people there. So she's fine a lot of times for most movies, seeing them, just at home. So, but this is a
sold out movie, so there's no room for putting your stuff down next to you and saving a seat.
Oh, so I had room because
okay.
I think at 10 a.m. it wasn't also one of the big theaters. I think because they had so many showings of this, they had like the 3D and the IMAX at AMC 30. And then they also had like the normal theaters. So I was in one of the normal theaters. Didn't really, I didn't hurt the experience at all. So I had room, and I'm not a huge fan of AMC 30 seats. Like if I had to sit there in my own little seat by myself with other people, it would have been a little uncomfortable, but I had room to stretch out. I was able to put up the armrest, stretch out a little bit more, and I was comfortable the entire way.
Nice.
Got popcorn, got my pop. was good to go.
Good to go, good experience, and it's 3 hours long, and it does
I mean, it was 240.
240.
Still, it's anything over 2 hours. It's up there in
It's
length.
an experience, and you said the last hour was amazing. There was not a lot of lulls, and so you felt like it was a great experience. In terms of, some people have come out and said it's one of the greatest superhero movies they've ever seen. Do you rank it as one of the top 3 in your book?
Definitely, and you look at the Avenger movies. It's alone. The first Avengers was the first of its real kind, where it brought together just a ton of characters, and it's hard to outdo that first time. And you saw that when it went to the second one in Avengers: Age of Ultron, that they kind of got lost a little bit. But I think they really redeemed themselves. I think Marvel, as they've gone along, they've found the formula. I think they've tinkered with it all along, and they have the formula for making this gigantic universe and all these different types of worlds just come together. Because I mean, you saw everybody come together. You had the original Avengers from the first movies. You add on Black Panther. You add on the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's just gonna continue to get bigger. And it just culminated in this 10-year. It finally comes full circle, because we've been teased this main villain since about 10 years ago, and finally gets there. And it did not disappoint.
Did not disappoint. You were definitely invested. I knew you would be interested. Why are people raving and ranting about this movie? Why do people say it's one of the best superhero movies? What went into it that makes it something that people will remember and watch? And that's the fun part about movies, is that if you make a quality movie, people not only see it once, they see it 2 and 3 times. And on Twitter, that's the greatest marketing you can get, is that people were like, the second time around was even better than the first time around, because you get more insights, you catch on things that you don't see. What made this movie that awesome that people are going to see it multiple times?
I think what makes it that much better is you get a little bit of reality, because a lot of times superhero movies are, you have your superhero, he meets the villain, and he may get beat at first, but then by the end of the movie, it's all happy endings. He gets the victory, and everybody goes home. By the end of this movie, it's not always, the good guys come out all right. That there is the ability to have losses here and there, have an ending that actually makes you think a little bit. What it really did for me is it just made me want more. And it didn't make me want more in a bad sense, that I thought that the movie left out anything. But what it made me want more is that next movie, because I'm excited to see what the journey is going to be to really conclude this. Because, I mean, this is essentially a part 1, even though it is entitled Infinity War Part 1. It's the part 1 of this, culmination. Next year, you're going to have the same thing where you get the finale here.
Gotcha. So it was something that you can tell they put the effort in. You can tell that it delivered. And in terms of superhero movies, a lot of times if you tell a bad story, or if a story drags, or if it doesn't make sense logically, then people get, really upset and things like that. But what qualities this had was, it was, entertaining. It didn't drag. It was action packed, and it provided the level of surprise that was just enough to keep people going, whoa, that happened. Whoa,
Yep.
I can't. And people were coming away saying, I'm still tripping. I mean, literally on people's Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, people were walking away going, I cannot process what I just saw, because of the way that now the storyline is going to evolve. That's really great storytelling, is that you put something on paper, you write something, you create something as an art that leaves people talking, going, whoa, what's going to happen next? And people do definitely, they're attached to these movies, and they recognize, wow, the next wave of these movies is only going to get better in the next coming years. These franchises know what's going on, and they're just going to keep putting out product that people love. And that's what I think is also part of it, is the anticipation. People set their calendars when they know the release date. I think it's done perfectly, and I think you would agree, in terms of first releasing a trailer, then getting a little bit of that buzz, then maybe sprinkling a couple teases here and there, and then you have, if the movie comes out Friday, you have the Thursday midnight release for all the super fans, and then you have people saying, don't spoil it, and then you get the initial wave of people that are just like, this is unbelievable, I can't believe, Thursday, Friday, and Friday morning, people were just coming away going, I can't believe I saw that. I can't wait to go see it. Saturday night, Sunday, I can't wait to see it again. So I see it all. Obviously, I'm not making this up. I've seen it all. I'm not a superhero guy, so I get my fill from you. So how many crowns do you give the Avengers on a scale of 1 to 5? How many crowns?
I got to give it 5 crowns.
5 crowns? I think it's one of your first 5-crown movies.
I give it very lightly. I have to give it 5 crowns because it gave me everything that I wanted. It left me wanting more. It makes me I want to go see it again.
You do.
I'm just I'm pumped for this movie. I think the biggest thing, and I won't spoil anything, but the biggest thing that I think everyone was really had the question going in is, who's going to die? Because you have all these characters, there's no way that they're all going to come out unscathed. And I think what they did and how they concluded this movie, it was surprising. I know I didn't expect it.
Okay, unexpected stuff going on in a movie. Nice stuff, Jason. Great review. 5 crowns. Go see the Avengers. And from all accounts, you definitely have to see Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy. You got to be kind of involved in the other Avengers movies to kind of follow along.
You don't have to go through the entire Marvel catalog. I would go through the more recent ones.
Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Black Panther, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Iron Man.
You don't have to go through all the Iron Man movies because I think that's when
Captain America's.
The Captain America's does help, especially the number 2 and 3 because that's Winter Soldier and Civil War. Those are all very recent. And they're all relevant to this movie.
You got it. Maybe in a year or two, when the kids get a little bit older and they're doing a little bit more independent stuff, I'll sit down and go back and start enjoying these movies. Because right now I'm doing the comedies. I'm doing a lot of the documentaries on Amazon and Netflix. So maybe in a couple of years, I'll revisit the superhero movies.
Oh, and by that time, they'll have more female superheroes. Coming out in November, they have Ant-Man and Wasp. Next year, they'll have Captain Marvel. I think Black Widow's getting her own. That might be, her storyline could get a little dark, so you may want to hold that off on the kids, but still, it's going to be great.
Great stuff, Jason. God's plan is for us to wrap up this great episode 151 in the books. Always enjoy our conversation. Thanks, everybody, for supporting us. We couldn't keep the lights on and the microphones hot here in our Sterling Heights studios without your support. Visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Visit Jason on Twitter. Follow him at Jarvie the King. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you had a different review of the movie or if you thought that what we said about the draft was totally uncalled for, message us, good or bad, on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. And next week, maybe, just maybe, I know you say I have an inflated ego, but if something airs tonight, 10:30, A&E, I'm going to come back here.
Oh, God.
I'm going to air it on our Twitter page.
Fit in the office.
I will
Your
then.
head's going to be so big.
Let's just say this. I may have to be called Mr. John when you see me next time. Just saying. You may have to not be just buddies anymore.
I'll call you Mr. Head because your head will be so large.
All right, let's get out of here. You listen to the Motor City Sports Rant. Spread the word. You like this podcast? Tell 15 other people. We appreciate it. That's how we grow.
Later.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.
Ha 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 ha.